Welcome back to the FIBC Podcast. My name is Jake Yak, and we have my partner here, Nav Seacon, and this is officially our first episode of 2024. Today, we'll be reviewing our Farms in BC Sold Report. This report goes over all the sales results for 2023 in comparison to 2022. We'll also be touching on what we forecast coming up for 2024, so stay tuned for that. Well, Nav, I know you've been through quite a few of these roller coaster years in the past.
Yeah.
How do you think 2023 stood up against those previous years?
What was quite different this time versus the previous years where we've seen these downturns, or I would call it corrections, we haven't seen interest rates spike the way they have this year versus some of those other years. Very interesting year overall. I would say this is the first time in my 15-year career where I've seen prices significantly drop, sales volume significantly drop, and interest rates as high as they are. I remember taking my first loan in 2007, and at that time, my loan was 6%, but prices were almost a third of what they are today. So, looking back at that, looking at today, very rocky time of 2023. As a realtor, as an investor, as a property holder, this was 1 year definitely in the books. I'm hoping to say that in 2024 that we're going to be putting 2023 behind us.
I hope so, man. I hope that's we're going to look back at that, and it's going to be kind of the very bottom of the market right there, and that's it.
Well, I don't see anything. I don't see prices coming down further. I think they are where they're supposed to correct to. And I think when we go through each of our sold reports, they'll show what the decreases were per city. We'll also discuss some of the sales volume from 2023 to 2022. And I think what I really want to discuss also is what does 2024 look like per city? As you know, each city reacts differently, all the way from Richmond to Chilliwack. When the market's about to go up, same thing when the market comes down. So it would be, when we go through these stats, it's going to be really an eye-opener for everyone to kind of see where these numbers land.
Yeah, and I feel like I noticed that most particularly in between Langley and Abbotsford, kind of that differentiator between Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley. Just that little border right there. It made a big difference.
I think that border is actually at the peak of the market. Langley was almost at peak pricing with Surrey, which was unheard of.
Yeah.
I think that border now from Abbey Langley has shifted to Langley Surrey. So anything from Surrey east has taken a significant decrease in price. And there's certain factors to that too. Inventory. Inventory is probably the biggest one, right? So I think that's going to really, coming in 2024, we'll kind of be able to predict what we're going to see per city and how prices will hold. And it's always good, we might not be 100% accurate, but it's always good to kind of predict what we think the prices are going to be based on our past year's experience and what we're starting to see here in the last 30 to 60 days. Since the last 60 days, we've seen a massive uptick of buyers' calls. We've seen a massive uptick of accepted offers. We've seen a lot more solds here in the last 60 days. I think that is going to transition into 2024. And I'm hoping that as interest rates come down, 5-year fixed rates come down, bond yields come down, that prices will start on the uptick. And just based on inventory is going to determine how much that uptick is. Lower the inventory, the higher the prices will go. Lower the more the inventory, the prices will stay either stable or just come up a little bit. So in each city always has a different volume of inventory.
Awesome. And I know with every negative piece of news, there's always a silver lining. And, at this point, I'm sure in 2023, it may be generally considered a bad year or a negative year. However, we did have some wins. We had some achievements. And, maybe we can start with that and start it on a good note. And what were some positives that we could take away from 2023?
I think our entire team had a really good chance to reflect of what we would like to see for the next 10 years of our business. We took the opportunity, as you know, we took the opportunity of 2023 because it was slower. We had a lot of time to work on our business and figure out how to make our processes better, how we can provide better service, and how we can work more in sync as a team. Taking a lot of time in 2023 to reflect of where we want to see our business in 10 years and putting these processes and ideas in place, changing up a lot of things, starting a podcast. We've now implemented a lot of these things, and I'm very excited for 2024. I think my biggest achievements are not always based on how much commission you made, how many sales you've made. Growth is still growth. I feel that the growth that we've had in 2023 may not have been significant, and then I can speak probably on a lot of realtors, probably hasn't been a lot of significance on the sales side, but definitely on our team side, on our business side of things, I think we've grew a lot. And, putting these things in places for making sure we have a successful 2024. Downturns are really good to analyze the market, sharpen your tools, sharpen your business. So when this time comes around again, we're going to be prepared for it. And I think putting these systems and processes in place will help us weather a bad storm and obviously do good on when the market's doing much better, right?
Now, what would you say were the biggest challenges of 2023?
The biggest challenges were, I think it was guidance. For buyers, it was guiding them when was the right time to purchase. You know how we operate. We want to make sure all our buyers that work with us get the best deals. So timing it to a position where it would be the best time for them to purchase, and not knowing what the Bank of Canada is going to do, and we had told a lot of our buyers to just wait, because depending on what the Bank of Canada does, it's going to determine how the market reacts. So the challenge is on the buying side is when to advise the buyers what time was the right time to purchase. Now on the selling side, our biggest challenges were what is true market value for some of these properties. In the beginning of January, January of 2023, we came off of the tail end of 2022 where the prices were still quite high. People were still wanting 22 prices. Moving further along into June, July, August, we saw interest rates continue to go up. Sellers started listening, I would say, to our stats and our data and what that was showing to really align, if they wanted to sell, what the price should be.
I found that it was quite difficult to get to a lot of these clients as well. I mean, they're all kind of expecting those price points. So
correct.
Peak 2022, which was January to, I'd say, March. That's more wishful thinking, I would say. But at the same time, reality does strike eventually. And when they came to that understanding, it was perhaps a little bit too late to kind of reduce those prices, because when they did actually eventually reduce those prices, the rates were so high that it needed further reductions at that point.
Yeah, so you were chasing down the market. Yeah. But one advice that we've given a lot of our sellers, if you don't need to sell, so you can wait it out another year or two, we didn't really push for price reductions, because, our job as realtors is get the sellers the most amount of money based on their situation, right? And some people just had farms as an investment. So, and they can afford to hold it for another 2-3 years. We didn't reduce the price. Perfect example, we did a sale a couple of days ago. It was in Pitt, Meadows. We was 20 acres at the peak, and we had listed this property in January. We were getting, and it was listed at 2.99. We were not getting any offers higher than 2.5. Sellers did not need the money. They would like to sell, but they didn't need the money to do something, or they just they just decided they didn't want that piece because their plans have changed, but they could afford to wait. We didn't get any offers higher than 2.5 throughout the entire year. Come November, when the 5-year fixed rates came down, motivation came out, we got them 2.9. Wow. Patience, and motivation. So depending on the seller's motivation, we don't sit there and advise them to undervalue their property. Everyone has their own specific needs. Some people need to sell, A, because of financial reasons. Then you have to price it very sharp. And you have to reduce if need be. Or B, they just need to sell based on certain circumstances, aside from financial. So the price is not going to make or break the family's decision to sell if it's a 10% swing, right? So a lot of that was just based on guidance individually. We don't really look at all of the sellers and put them under one umbrella. We really study the seller's situation and what their future plans are and what they're going to do with those funds and how much are they relying on those funds to do the next venture will determine on how much the advice we give them. And that's okay, right? Like, we got hired to do a job and we are hired to give our professional opinion. And that's what we do.
All right, man. So now getting straight into the sold data from our sold report here for 2023, we're going to go over a few of the trends and just kind of what we found to be the trend for each city specifically, right? So we'll start off with Abbotsford here. And what were the total farms sold? What acreage class, performed the best? Like, the little things like this, maybe the overall price increase or decrease, or maybe you can speak to each city and, what you think will happen in 2024.
Yeah, well, Abbotsford overall, in 2022, there was a total of 36 sales. And in 2023, there was actually 48. So sales numbers increased. But overall, the average price per acre came down by 30%. So that's quite significant. Now, keep in mind that most of the sales out of the 48 were between 0 and 10 acres. And when you look at 90% of the sales happening within that category, the price point of those farms only fell 20%. But overall, prices have come down on a per acre basis in Abbotsford anywhere from an average of 20 to 30%, depending on the parcel size, either 5 to, say, 60, 70 acres. But overall, sales were up.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a big eye opener because, we're thinking 2023, people wouldn't be selling as much, but in reality, Abbotsford sold quite a bit more, just obviously for lesser prices.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and that's the thing. There was a lot of pent up buyer demand that people that are financially capable that were sitting on the sidelines waiting for these prices to come down. When they started coming down, they jumped on it. It fell in their affordability class.
Now, I guess the next one here, Chilliwack.
Yeah. So in Chilliwack, in 2022, there was 71 sales. In Chilliwack this year, in 2023 was 51 sales. So that's down 28%. Now, the average price per acre in Chilliwack only came down about 10%.
Wow. So it seems like the interest was really heavily shifted towards Abbotsford.
In the east side, correct.
Yeah.
But prices in Chilliwack, they were quite stable. Even because they never really skyrocketed significantly.
They kind of more just caught up.
They just caught up, yeah. And so I think, overall, I think Chilliwack in 2024 is going to have a stable, consistent year.
That's what I noticed as well, kind of coming into the end of 2023. It just felt stable.
And the action, there's a lot of action on a lot of the inventory, right? Yeah. And I feel that I think there's going to be a little bit more inventory next year, but I think the buyer pool is big enough there to absorb it because the price points are more affordable versus Abbotsford, Langley.
And it's still centered around the highway. So you're very close to everything that you need to be at.
Yeah,
right? It makes a lot of sense.
That's right. And majority of the sales out of the 51 actually happened under 10 acres again. It was about 90%. And that scale only came down about 8%. So overall, it's not too bad. It was a kind of a balanced market in Chilliwack for 2022 and 2023.
So the trend seems to be obviously that people are kind of focused on those smaller acreages.
That's right.
More for kind of a hobby farm kind of vibe.
And that's always going to happen. And that's always going to be. Yeah, it's always going to be the case.
Yeah. Now looking over to Mission, how did that fare?
So Mission, we've had in 2022 there was 47 sales, and in 2023 there's only 17. So that's down 63%.
Yeah.
quite a big drop in farm sales in Mission. And price points were down 50%. Now that's an average, an average from 0 to 100 acre chunks. But again, majority of those sales happen from 0 to 10 acres. And if you just focus in on those majority of those sales, the price point per acre only came down about 25%. Now, Mission is one of those areas where it is also affordable, much more affordable than Chilliwack, but less desirable than Chilliwack.
Yeah.
So I think the bounce back in pricing in Chilliwack will be faster for 2024 than it is in Mission. But I do feel that Mission pricing will bump up as well. Inventory is still quite low of farmland in Mission as well. It's just the demand is also very, very low.
Yeah. Now it kind of falls in line with the narrative that people were able to afford more in Langley and Abbotsford as those prices came down, that they didn't have to go out to Mission and Chilliwack. They kind of shifted towards Abbotsford and Langley.
That's right.
Because they were still able to afford the parcels in their desired areas.
Correct.
Rather than going a little bit farther out.
Correct.
So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, how about Maple Ridge?
So Maple Ridge was almost equivalent to Mission. 61 sales in 2022, only 10 sales in 2023.
Wow. Same trend then.
Same trend, big drop, 83% drop. But price point only came down, I would say about 10%. Again, Maple Ridge has a bigger demand than Mission. The further west you come from Mission is much more demand. And price points didn't take too much of a hit. Not much inventory in as well. So just because sales were down, that doesn't mean prices came down. That just means a lot of people just didn't want to sell.
Yeah.
Now, does that relate? Will those people sell in 2024? Maple Ridge is always one of those ones that are hard to predict. Sometimes you do have high inventory. Sometimes you don't. And you really find out around close to spring. And I think in 2024, I do feel that there will be a little bit more inventory, but at the same time, I don't see prices. I do see prices coming up there as well. I think Maple Ridge will get at least a 10% bump up in 2024.
It's one of those hidden gems that's going to be the future potential. That's where people are going to go for that potential.
I feel that if I was an investor and I was buying based on investment and equity growth, I would say Maple Ridge for long-term equity growth and to get into the market for affordability, Maple Ridge is a really good market.
Yeah. Now, how about Richmond?
Richmond performed very well. So as of sales in 2013, there was only 13 sales. 2023, there was 18 sales.
Okay.
And price points, an average price point has only come down about 20%. But if you look at the amount of sales that happened, obviously from 0 to 10 were the bulk of it. They were up 20%. So we saw more sales, actually just now if I recall, we saw a lot more listings. And this is the most sales I've seen in quite some time in Richmond, to be honest. Usually we're always close to that under 10 mark per year. A lot of people holding strong, don't want to sell. What I'm also noticing is there's a lot of baby boomers that are at that age where a lot of these assets they've maxed out in their mind of equity, and their kids don't want to take on the properties. They don't even want to inherit the property. So we're starting to get a lot of those calls where people are just saying, hey, you know what, let's sell it. My kids don't want it. I'd rather move the funds over and buy a few of my kids a few houses.
Right.
Yeah, or some commercial property.
And the value of Richmond is so high.
Correct.
Right?
Affordability is quite high.
Ideal locations if you want to be close to the city of Vancouver, right?
That's right. You're not going to get anything closer.
Yeah. Now, getting into Coquitlam, I don't know if there's going to be very many in there, but how did that fare?
So Coquitlam, there was 4 sales in 2022, 1 in 2023. Coquitlam is a very small pocket of ALR properties. I think there's maybe only 150 or 200 farms there. But even that, not many people sell there. And it's very, very limited in inventory. Prices are quite consistent. Like just based on the sales ratio, it stayed pretty much even. Whatever prices were in 2022 were almost as equivalent in 2023.
Yeah, I would say that's not much data to really work on. in terms of sale price.
Yeah.
But still, maybe next
Predictions
year.
for Coquitlam, I think it's just going to stay stable.
Yeah.
Just depending on inventory again. Overall, I see a bare minimum of 10%.
Now, Pitt Meadows is an exciting one. That's one that's really close to Vancouver as well.
Yes.
Has some nice acreages. How'd that fare?
We're seeing a lot of buyers turn away from Richmond that don't want to come on this side of the river, but still want to be close to Vancouver, all starting to look to buy in Pitt Meadows. Pitt Meadows is also a hidden gem that a lot of buyers are overlooking. From Langley, it's a 10-minute drive, 15-minute drive. To Burnaby or Coquitlam or Richmond or even Vancouver, you're talking about 20, 25-minute drive. So it's one of those areas that are that I would say that have a big future growth in price potential. Overall, 12 sales in 2023, only 7 in 2022. Sales are up 70%. Price points did come down about 25% from 2022.
Which makes sense. I mean, there's more sales that occurred because of it.
Yeah.
Now, I know this one's near and dear to you. How was Delta?
Delta is almost equivalent to Richmond. You're always seeing low inventory. But this year, I did see a lot more inventory, especially small farms. When we look at Delta, there's always big chunks. It's always 20, 30, 40, 50 acre chunks that are selling. You rarely see 5, 10 acres. But this year, there was a total of 7 sales. Last year was only 4. But price points are up about more than 50%.
Wow.
But that's also because the smaller pieces, prices are a lot higher per acre. So they took that ratio number quite up. Delta overall, stable market, always big buyer pool, low inventory. Prices will stay strong in 2024.
What were the sales like? Are they more in the 0 to 10 range?
It would be 0 to 20.
0 to 20, okay.
Yeah. Okay. I would say, so there was one sale at 0 to 5. 2 out of the 7 sales were 10 to 20. And then one was 30 plus.
Now we're getting into some of the bigger ones. Surrey, how did that fare? So
Surrey this year, from what I saw, was low inventory. Nobody wanted to sell. Yeah. People held on. People took their farms off the market. Financially, I've noticed a lot of people in Surrey, they're financially well off to the point where they could wait it out. And again, it goes back to the advice we give. If you don't need to sell, it's okay. Take it off the market. We'll reassess it when the prices adjust and get a little bit better. I do feel that some of those people that were waiting on the sidelines of 2023 will come on the market in 2024. So I do feel that there's going to be an uptick of inventory in Surrey. Me personally, I know that I've got a lot of listings coming up in Surrey. Yeah. But total 18 sales in 2022, 12 sales in 2023. Sales prices have been down about an average of 3%. But again, that was just due to lack of inventory.
And now finally we have Langley. Now this one's usually a big story property or story city here.
So Langley is always one of those cities that have the most transactions. So in 2022, there was about 99 sales. In 2023, there was 103. It was quite at par, right? Price points have only come down about 10%.
Wow. So that means that it was a pretty stable
2022 to 2023, on average, on a per acre basis, have leveled off. Langley is going to be one of those markets where inventory plays a huge factor. And there's a lot of inventory that comes on in Langley. If inventory stays high, you're not going to see these price points go up. And if you do, it's going to be very, very slim. It'll be like 5% in 2024 is my prediction.
Yeah, and these are smaller acreages, of course.
And these are all smaller. Yeah, the bigger acreages took a little bit bigger hit. If you look at the sales of 20 acres and above, they went down in price by 30%. Sorry. Wow. The bigger acreages took a big hit in Langley on a per acre basis. The smaller pieces, the 5 acres it stayed quite even. The 10 acres took about a 10% dip. But the 20 to 30 took about a 25. And that shows that the buyer pool is much smaller for these larger parcels, especially out in Langley. Where I see that the prices stay strong for bigger parcels is Surrey, Richmond, and Delta. I think these are the three areas where price points don't fluctuate too much on a per acre basis on the big pieces. I see them fluctuate quite a bit in Langley, Abbotsford, and Chilliwack. When the market was hot, the price points jumped up significantly. But now when the market is corrected and has come down, they are the ones that have taken a big decrease in price. Surrey took a decrease as well, but not as significant as Langley, Abbotsford, and Chilliwack. Delta stayed quite consistent, and Richmond stayed quite consistent on the larger pieces.
Yeah, and it seems like the bulk of the transactions were, I guess, Langley and Abbotsford, right?
I would say Langley and Abbotsford took the bulk of the sales in 2023, sorry.
Yeah. Now, Nav, what do you think is the forecast for 2024 for these different cities?
I think on an average overall, like if we were to make a statement blanketing all these cities, I feel that anything under 10 acres is going to see a price bump up of at least 10%. From 10 to 25 acres or 30 acres, you're going to see anywhere from a minimum 5% jump. But anything that's larger parcels, I think you're going to see the prices stay the same. You're going to see that all across Greater Vancouver and the Valley all throughout 2024, even though that the interest rates are coming down. The smaller pieces will go up. The bigger pieces will level off, stay consistent. But as interest rates come down, affordability rises. I think 2025 is when you're going to see the bigger acreage prices per acre start to climb. That's kind of what I'm forecasting.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. I mean, right now, the small prices, the small acreages, if they actually do go up in price, eventually it's going to lead to the bigger ones going up in price as well, up to a limit, right?
Yeah, so I think
that's going to be a long-term thing.
I think the price points going up is for 2024 is the year for 0 to 20 acres.
Awesome, Nav. Now, that really brings us home for 2023 and paints a pretty optimistic picture for 2024. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
How about yourself? Yeah?
Yeah. We need it.
Yeah, I mean, for the realtor side of things, obviously for us, it's we're in the big ticket items here, and affordability needs to get, if it's heading in the direction that it's heading, it's going to be a good time.
I'm very optimistic. I think that we've spent a lot of time on our systems and processes and our procedures and are making sure that we're ready for this to come. So I think 2024 overall will be a great year.
Yeah. Now for the audience, if you're interested in a deeper dive into all the data, feel free to check out the description below and you can get access to our Farms BC Sold Report, which will have all the numbers, all the data for all the cities that we just discussed. And for more information, feel free to reach out to us at any time. Check out farmsbc.com. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you guys next time.